Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the line management session. Jane and I will give an overview of the work that we've been doing for the last 6 months or so in relation to line management and its importance as a lever to improving diversity and inclusion. Also, by the way, to let you know that both the summary version and the long papers are available on the event app. We're going to break this down into sort of 4 parts. Firstly, why is line management important? Why does it matter for success and inclusion? There's well-established evidence showing that inclusive behaviour leads to better engagement and ultimately better business performance. For example, the top 20% of most engaged firms show 20% higher profits. They also show less absenteeism and lower staff turnover. Unfortunately, the opposite is also true. Worse engagement leads to lower staff productivity, higher staff turnover, and at a human level, perhaps more importantly, they're less happy and less fulfilled. And our contention is that line managers are key to building a positive, inclusive and conducive environment. But there's also a consensus that they aren't being supported to do as good a job as is needed. And if that weren't enough, we have COVID. We're in the middle of a pandemic still, which is putting strains on mental health. And with the increase in remote working, lack of contact, and in some cases, line managers haven't even met their team members in person. So the need to fix this is becoming ever more urgent. And on the back of this, we did our research, which Jane will cover and give us some insights into the work we did and the findings that we've made. Over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Julia. So we held around 20 interviews with people in the industry, from CEOs to HR professionals and investment and business professionals, to understand what the current practices are around the selection, training, setting of objectives, assessment and reward structures for line managers. And while we found that practices across the industry varied a lot, there were some common themes. The first thing we identified was that line managers are often line managers by default because they're the most senior person in the team or on the desk. And in other cases, line managers put themselves forward because they see it as a way to get ahead in the organisation, and not because it's a particular interest or aptitude. We also found that the training of line managers varies a lot across the industry, but rarely is it focused on what's expected of the line manager and the development of the skills that they need. We also identified that relatively few line managers have clear objectives attached to their line management function, and they rarely get enough time to spend on line management. Line management is often an add-on to the day job of running portfolios or consulting with clients. We found that very few line managers are getting much feedback on how effective they are as a line manager. And therefore, they're not getting the learning of what's working and what's not working. And they're not getting the rewards linked to how well they are doing as line managers either, because that day job, that performance in portfolios or the winning of new clients takes precedence in the way that they're assessed and rewarded. And our contention is that this means that individuals, employees in organizations, are not getting the support of the line manager around their professional development, their career development, and getting a sense that they're valued and included in the organization. But there is some very good practice in the industry, and some examples include organizations that have professional line managers within their portfolio management teams, people with the aptitude and the training and the feedback and reward systems that mean that they are effective line managers. But for this to work, they can't be seen as second-class citizens. We also found organizations who've set very clear objectives and criteria for what a good line manager looks like. and then they're being assessed on that with good feedback and rewarded accordingly. So I'm now going to hand back to Julia, who's going to talk through our recommendations and our call for action.
Lovely, thank you. So the call to action, what can you each do? As you'll have sort of gathered, this requires cultural change. It's obviously not going to be a quick fix, and it is something that you need to make your own. In fact, it's probably the start of a conversation which will enable you to develop the principles and processes to support the behaviours that you want to engender. It's also quite important that there's consistency across the various areas that Jane was mentioning. What we've done is to outline 4 questions that we think are going to be helpful, and we'd like the diversity project members to ask themselves and indeed their colleagues. Number 1, how is line management valued in your organisation? Is line management valued in your organisation? Number 2, do you have the right people doing the job? Number 3, do your line managers have clear objectives? Do they get good feedback? Do they know what it is they're supposed to be doing? And do their team members actually feel able to give that feedback? And lastly, do the line managers get support with training and, of course, the appropriate rewards? So these are the things that we've noted in terms of good practice, and I think are a good basis for the conversations that you have internally. I'm now going to hand over to Adam Patterton, who led Reddington's work in this the process that they've gone through. And he'll outline what they did and what their learnings were, which I think will be very interesting. And after that, we'll turn to the Q&A. So thanks very much. Hand over to you, Adam.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adam, and I'm the Product Design Lead and Diversity and Inclusion Co-Chair at Reddington. I'm here today to talk a little about how we went about using the themes and findings from the diversity paper to start a conversation amongst our team leaders around the role of line management in creating an inclusive culture and how you might do the same. So we hold quarterly team leader workshops, and we had an opportunity upcoming with all of our team leads in one place to run a session where we can discuss the role of line management and its impact on inclusivity within Reddington. There was a lot of really great detail and information within the paper, but what we wanted to do is understand how we might focus on what matters for Reddington. How do we convert this into something that's relatable and actionable within our organisation? So what we did is we took the conversation starters that were listed at the kind of end of the paper, and we structured a set of survey questions that we could go out to members of the team leaders group at Reddington and ask them how they feel about the different aspects covered within the paper. So we broke this down into different aspects like skills, support, training, right people, objectives, metrics and incentives and rewards. And we structured some kind of questions that could be answered on a scale of 1 to 5. And we sent the survey out in advance of the workshop. This was really handy because we were able to pre-process the results that came back in and present this as a heat map, so we can show the dispersion of the results to the team leaders to promote good conversation. This also helped us focus on specific themes that were available and really got pulled out of the report. So we might have focused on things like training or objectives that were the key pressing issues that people were discussing. Off the back of that, we delved into those specific issues or themes, and we talked about the successes in those areas that people were reporting against. We talked about the pain points, but also the opportunities that we can take away from that and change within our organization. So what we found at the end of it, we had a lot of really valuable information that we could take away, but more importantly, I guess, more actionable insight that we were able to draft kind of a set of opportunities that we can progress with internally.